We're so excited to have Dirk Beveridge here today on our High Pressure podcast. Dirk's going to talk to us about a lot of really cool things. If you're a distributor, this is going to be a fun hour for you. So, Dirk, you know what? I got to tell you, you're one of those folks, when you meet you, you just instantly warm up to you. You get it. You're like a people person. We met in 2015, and I was at a conference in Arizona. We got talking. We talked about different things you were working on. I thought you had a really great viewpoint on disruption in the business world, which was definitely happening at that time. And I have to say, it might be happening still at this time. It seems to keep going, right?
Even more so.
And then I was on the GATA committee, planning committee, and we asked you to come and speak at that. That was a great talk that you put on. And Thank you. From that relationship, I just want to say that we had a call for you, and we were invited to come and be part of your across the country, right? I wanted to talk to you about that. So you're going across the country. Tell me about that. What are you doing as you're going across the country?
Well, George, I appreciate it. And yes, I had a chance to meet you and your team down in Houston. And it was just a fantastic day to learn all about the Rudderman organization and your innovation, your commitment to your customers, and really your commitment to your employees as well. So I really appreciate that opportunity in the day we had together down in Houston. So, yeah, George, We Supply America is a new platform and, quite frankly, a building movement throughout the world of distribution. And, coming out of the pandemic, some things came together. In the middle of the pandemic, I wrote an open letter to distributors, George, that I titled Shift to Tomorrow. And the whole thinking there was, let's lift our eyes towards the horizon and let's think about what we need to do to come out stronger on the other side of the pandemic. In that open letter, I used the words, the noble calling of distribution, for the first time. And think about those words, the noble calling of distribution. Distribution is a $7 trillion economic engine, the third largest economic engine on this planet, behind that of the GDP of the U.S. and China. I find that to be noble. You all create over 6 million jobs. I find that to be noble. So one thing led to another. And George, I had the most brilliant idea in my 35-year career. I bought a 38-foot RV to travel across the country, visiting distributors. And so I've spent the last 2 summers in the We Supply America RV, traveling over 31,000 miles, 59 different distribution stops over the last 2 summers, over 500,000 social impressions, all to champion the noble calling of distribution. And we can talk about that to whatever degree we want, but that's the mission.
So I have to tell you, I was picked up at the airport by Steve Byers. We were going to dinner, and we said we're going to dinner the night before. That was absolutely a first. So we're driving down the road, and I'm like, Steve, this is really, we're leaving town. I mean, we're in downtown Houston. We're leaving town. Where are we going? Oh, we're going to go to dinner. I said, okay. So about an hour later, we're driving, and we get to, Steve didn't tell me the whole story, right? Where we're going to dinner. So we get there, and we're like, wow, we're checking into an RV park. So we checked in the RV park, and then we're going around the RV park looking for your big, beautiful,
RV.
You got a beautiful banner on the side. We get there. I have to tell you, it was a first, but it was one of the most enjoyable dinners I've had. We sat outside, had hamburgers cooked on a little fireplace out there, and had a little bit of bourbon, and that was nice. And we just sat there and hang out and talked, and it was just a really pleasant evening. It was really enjoyable. So I know for sure you're definitely going around the country in your RV and visiting everybody.
Yeah, George, George, real quick, I appreciate you making that 45-minute drive out to me to have that dinner outside by the fire in front of the RV, because at $7 a gallon, that 90-mile round trip you just saved me, added to the profitability of the program. So thanks.
But I will also make a statement, and it really is a true statement. You know what? It was a really simple thing, right? It was just a couple hamburgers and some lettuce and some tomatoes, and you know what? It was great. It was really great. I think the company made it maybe, I don't know, it's better, but it was great. So, when you travel to all the folks, you have a unique experience. You're focused on distribution, and you're traveling to all these places, and you're sitting down and have the opportunity to see the inside guts of these businesses. You're sitting down with the owners, the management team, and all the individual people. After you've done that, now, how many locations do you think you've done that with in the last?
59. Over the last 2 summers, 59.
59. That's a big number. And these are all built very successful distribution companies in different markets and also in
Yep.
our market.
Yep.
If you sat and looked at that and said there's two things that really stood out at you, that you said that's what makes them successful. There's a commonality through all of them. It may not be the most complicated thing. And I would actually almost say, what is the most basic two things? What comes to mind when I ask you that question?
Yeah, great question. And I do appreciate it. And I'm constantly thinking about that, George. And you alluded to something, and I'd like to just drive that home. I really believe that these last 2 summers have given me a unique and a one-of-a-kind perspective of what's happening in the world of distribution. We in the consulting business, if you will, we all do our online surveys. We all do our speaking and our preparation for that. I do think tanks, with CEOs around the table, and all that's really, really important. But I think the last 2 summers have given me a one-of-a-kind opportunity, because in these 59 businesses, I start out in the warehouse. I start on the receiving dock. I start with the pickers. I start with the drivers. And then I go into the offices and meet those in marketing and sales. And it's really, I think, an inverse understanding. And so it's not just the leadership team that I've had a chance to meet with. It's the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of individuals that I've met, listened to, heard their stories, and hugged a lot of those hundreds of individuals on the job, listening to them. So with that, 2 things that stand out, that separates. Number one is the culture of family in these businesses. George, people have talked about that for a lot of years. And I didn't really quite get it until these last 2 summers. Family, and when I've asked people prior to the We Supply America tour, what do they mean by family? It was hard to articulate, right? Yeah. But I tell you what, when you spend the time in these 59 businesses and you hear the stories from the individuals, and I ask them, why have you remained with this business, this independent family owner, employee-owned business for 20 years, 30 years? The response is always, number one, we're not treated like a number. We truly are a family here. And when I drill down, nobody was really able to define specifically what they meant by family. But George, I've identified seven characteristics of what really separates these independent family-owned businesses that are the backbone of our country with this family culture. And I'll just tick them off real quick. There's a deep, deep bond. There's an emotional connection. There is a deep, unfettered connection. There is dignity in every job and every individual. There is a real belonging to each other and the purpose. Value. We see value in every single individual. And George, dare I say, there's deep, deep love in these businesses.
Yeah.
And it truly is special. It's unique. I could go on for another 2 hours talking to you about this. It's something that we in our country and our society need to zero in on, and we need to raise the narrative of that in this society, in our country, to fix a lot of the problems in our country. So I'd say that's number one, the family culture.
Yep.
And number two, I would say that really separates these businesses that I've gone to is, I would say, gosh, there's so much. I'll say the focus on recognizing and appreciating the past and learning the lessons from the past.
When you say that,
but acknowledging the responsibility to build the business and make the decisions for the long term, for the next generation, and maybe even the generation after that. There's really, in these businesses I'm stopping at, there's long-term thinking as well.
Okay, so you think that's another key thing that's a commonality. They're real successfully. They're doing long-term thinking. They're not just reacting for the day. They're making the investment. It sounds like that also means you're making an investment in your people, whether it be training, investment in your company for the long term. When you say long term, are you talking 1 year out, 2 year out, 5 year out?
No, I'm talking longer than that, George. You alluded to it. So easy in this business because distribution is it's complex, it's a hard business, and it's easy to get trapped in the day to day, if you will.
Yep.
These businesses have a way to get up and not only have a plan, for the next, let's say, 3 years, right?
Yep.
But they are also they are also keenly aware of the transformation, the innovation, the change, the leadership that's going to be required to build the business, not just for the next 3 years, but the next decade and even the next generation. Real quick, in San Diego, we're going to talk about the tsunami that's approaching distribution in this, the tsunami of generational change, right? One generation is going to be exiting, turning it over. And they're really thinking hard about and investing, as you said, and strategizing in terms of what do we need to do to be prepared and to prepare our business for this successful transition to the next generation. There's a long way to go in a lot of businesses there, but we're really beginning to think about it as well.
So for walking into 59 businesses, I know you've been in other businesses other than just the tour, what would be really amazing, be really kind of fun to be with you on each one of those things, because I'm thinking there must be that moment that you say to yourself as you walk into certain places, it might not have been on this tour, where you go, what are those uh-ohs? You first walk in and you start looking around and go, uh-oh, there's a problem here. This, I'm doing my thing and all, but what are those, are there any standouts that you say those are kind of like the beginning litmus test to say, hey, this might be an area that sometimes companies can have as an issue or problem. They don't recognize it. Is there any one top one that you kind of go when you go to a place and say, uh-oh, or maybe they do 95% right, but they're still the one, uh-oh?
Yeah. Boy, that's a great question. What a great spin on what I've been asked to look at. So I'll answer it in this way. I think the uh-oh is our ability to understand and get our arms around what I'm calling the great redefinition, George. And, you mentioned when we first met, that's when my book for the NAW, Innovate, How Successful Distributors Lead Change in Disruptive Times, came out. And that's when we started talking about the disruptive forces impacting business, right?
Right.
And what I've really seen firsthand in these last 2 years, and we just published a new research report coming off We Supply America called Reimagining Leadership, the Future of Distribution. And in there, I talk about the need to reimagine leadership. And part of the reason why is this great redefinition. And George, there are 3 forces that are converging on these independent distribution businesses. There are the external forces outside of our control: supply chain, inflation, labor, technology, social change. There's the internal forces within our businesses, our ability to attract talent, retaining team members, management succession, as we just talked about, shifting needs and wants of our employees. Then there's the people issues, right? The desire to work in a hybrid way, the growing diversity, polarizing social and political views, the human toll of COVID. And we've identified about 28 of those. And what we've seen, George, from our survey that we just completed and that we've written in this research, is that 21 of these 24 forces in the 3 columns, external, internal, people, think about this. 21 of the 24 distribution leaders are telling us that 21 of the 24 are accelerating their impact on our businesses after COVID. So think about that. Not only are these impacting our businesses, the impact they're having, 21 of the 24, the impact they're having on our businesses are accelerating. So I think the uh-oh, or the, that you asked me about, it's our ability to comprehend, get our arms around this accelerated pace of change and transformation that, quite frankly, is redefining everything. Everything is being redefined. How we live, how we work, how we play, and we can go into that. But I think that's the uh-oh. Are we ready to truly lead our organization in this new time.
Right. And there's no doubt that the speed in which things are changing, the things that come across your desk, it feels like in the last couple of years, what comes across your desk in a day used to be what came across your desk in a couple of months,
Yeah.
And the changes and the ramifications of changes and all the different things they affect with one change in an industry. It could be a supply chain issue. It could be a helium shortage. It could be a CO2 shortage. It could be a shortage of trailers to transport the product. And they all are magnifying to all kinds of new issues we're all dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
Without question.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I do think it's interesting how you have that noble cause. And really the distribution is that behind the scenes. A lot of times you tell people what you do, they kind of look at you and go, okay, but the ramification and effects it has across the industries are really, one, it's a fascinating, the different markets we all touch, and also the impact it really has on everybody. So it really is a noble cause. And I think that we definitely have found out what supply chain, without a good supply chain, what that does to us. Right? You could have a $300,000 piece of equipment you need to ship out, and you could be waiting for a $5 part. It's made out of Viton or something. It's a certain seal out of Viton, and you just can't get Viton material for 5 months. So there's a lot of interesting challenges right now going on. Do you find there's a particular way that you're seeing people as you're visiting that are dealing with those are more short-term scenarios, but that are dealing with those kind of issues?
Yeah. So with those specific type of issues that you talked about, what I continue to hear and what I continue to see is the need to drive deeper conversations, partnerships, relationships, and trust, right, between the distributor and the suppliers. And it's very easy for a consultant on a podcast to talk about, right, George?
Yeah.
But it's very, very difficult. And I think if people want inspiration, if you don't mind, last Thursday, we just published the second We Supply America film for season 2, which featured an amazing company out of Bristol, Indiana, by the name of Robert Weed. Robert Weed is in the plywood and laminates industry, serving primarily the RV industry. It's led by a third generation, 35-year-old, brilliant CEO by the name of Will Weed. Now think about George, think about the RV industry. Forget about the supply chain issues we've had since COVID. Think about the RV industry, right? Traditionally, it goes up, all the time. And what did those companies do? What they would do is they would staff up when they needed to and then lay off, 20, 30% of their workforces in downtimes. And this is what keeps Will Weed up at night, all right? And he talks about the amplitude and the degree of changes in these wild swings. And so what he's on a mission to do and to figure out, not easy, but he wants to figure out how to take his suppliers and his core customers together so that they can find a way to solve these significant issues that continue to repeat. What he says is we've had supply chain issues in the past, and what we do is we just try to grind through it. And he says, what did we learn last time? And what he really believes is that there's an opportunity to rethink, reimagine what it means to partner so that we can even out this business throughout these wild swings in supply chain issues and the like. So I think on the surface, we can talk about partnering, trust, communication, right? Getting to the root causes of these issues. But then the hard work starts. And I got to tell you something, Will Weed, this 35-year-old CEO in Bristol, Indiana, has inspired the living hell out of me to say, let's think deep and hard about what we need to do going forward.
Yeah, and I think that that is a wonderful opportunity out there for us all to find a way to do. And much more complex today, even so, because, you used to be you had one layer down, you had to go get answers, get a straight answer,
right,
to get information. Now, as you know, it's 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 layers back. And people think they're giving you an honest answer. They think that that's really happening. And then they find out it might be a simple thing like it's supposed to be on a ship and the ship didn't get loaded. The ship didn't show up ship didn't show up because it's still out at port across the world trying to get unloaded. And so that's one aspect of it. Plus the fact, I think we dealt with this in 2008, 2009, when kind of went all the way back to the manufacturers. People really didn't have much in the warehouses, and it kind of went back to maybe the raw material people. This is so much deeper than before, so many layers back. So it's an interesting challenge he's got in front of him, and love to hear how he might be able to get some solutions to that.
Yeah, and George, I'll throw it out there, right? I don't think it's just in front of him. I think it's in front of all of us, right? Because this complexity that you just talked about isn't going to get any simpler, right? It's going to become the new norm. And so I think it's really a calling and a challenge for all of us in all of our lines of trade.
Yeah, I agree with you. So when I watched you walk around a facility, and it's interesting what you said earlier, I found that you gravitated and went to all the line workers. And a couple things about that. One, you didn't just sort of say, hey, how you doing today? You started asking a few more questions a little deeper. And the next thing you know, you'd be in a 15, 20-minute conversation with somebody that might be putting something on the shelf, that might be driving the forklift, they might be making a part, and they might be in the clean room that we had, or whatever areas that you might have gone to. And I would watch those conversations, and I would slowly watch that person start smiling. And then, or maybe looks like they got a little emotional, but there would be this very deep interaction with you. And I found that really fun to watch. And then what I thought was really cool is that you were, I could say that was when you're almost the most excited. To say you weren't excited to talk to me, but it seemed like that was when you're the most excited and jazzed about what they're saying or thinking about it. But you go, my God, yes, and I want you to touch on that a little bit. I'm sure you know that about yourself, but
so I'm learning that about myself, George. Honestly, I'm learning that in these 2 years. So number one, thank you for seeing that and observing that. And so a couple things, George. I don't know how many times in the last 2 years that I had a chance to meet people, again, anywhere in the organization. And then the George Rottermans, right? Or the manager who's giving me the tour, standing behind me as I'm having this interaction as you talk about. And I don't know how many times as I left that individual, the leader would say to me, I never knew that about him. I never knew that about that person. And just stop and think about that, right? And I think that's telling. And I think there's an opportunity for us. In this research I just mentioned to you, I think the number is 93% of us believe that humanity is going to play a larger role in leadership going forward. Humanity. Caring about the individual, not as an employee, but as a person, as a human being. Somebody who has a life outside of this work, somebody who has a family, somebody who has a dying father, somebody that has sick parents, what have you, trying to put their kids through school, whatever, trying to get their kids to the soccer game. And George, you're right. What I love about this, I love talking to the CEOs and all that, the strategies and all that, but damn it, distribution is a people business. It's a people business. And our people, every one of the people we work with has a story, has multiple stories. Right. And they want to tell those stories. And if you have just a little curiosity, if you want to take just a little bit of time, they will open up and tell those stories. I'll tell you one last thing. I don't know why Robert Weed, again, I'm thinking about Robert Weed. This wasn't in the film. As I'm on site doing the filming, I just got done filming Steve Ramel, the president of the organization, at the interview. And he had a hard stop at 11:45 a.m. And they didn't tell me why, but a hard stop. The video had to be done. My conversation with the president of the organization had to be done at 11:45. And so we thanked him and all that. And I went on, start going to the next one. And then as I walk through, I see Steve Ramel standing in the lobby with about 7 different employees that were dressed in all different ways. Some obviously were coming from the offices. Some were coming from the line in the distribution center and the fabrication center. And I asked Steve, I stopped. I said, Steve, what are you doing? You had a hard stop with me. What are you doing here? And he says, this is my weekly lunch with my employees. And he's taken those 7 employees out to lunch to learn about them as individuals, as people, and to learn what's on their mind. And so I do. I absolutely love hearing those stories.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah, I love touching. I have found, Steve, George, sorry, I have found that when you allow people to tell their stories, it matters to them. It matters.
Right. I think that's a great takeaway that you're giving there. I think all of us could spend more time doing that. And then that person knows you made that time. And as you had as a hard stop, right? He took that really serious. And people will know that. The people working for him will know that. They'll know he's genuine about it and cares. And so that's a very powerful takeaway. I think it'd be really great for all of us to do more of that. Well, I found that an experience of watching you talk to people, and I heard in a lot of those conversations, people would talk about what they do, why they do it. You'd ask questions, why are we here and all. So our organizations work very hard on having purpose. We feel that's really the future of it glues things together, and it becomes a powerful, powerful thing. And it also makes the job a lot more enjoyable because there's what are we here for? What are we trying to do? What's that noble purpose? Now for us, we have ours providing solutions to the people that are building the future and changing the world. We truly feel all of our customers, because of what they sell and do and who they sell to and who they supply to, whether it be a rocket taking off or a medical or hospital or technology or some type of semiconductor, they're touching so many places. So we really feel that what we do as a purpose and trying to instill that in all of our folks really is the thing. And we are helping the folks that are building the future and changing the world, which would be the gas distributors and gas suppliers around the country that we supply to. And I would say that, that's been a really great internalization for us, because one of the things you find yourself saying in a company, right? We need to get that customer to buy more from us. We need to sell more, And what we have been finding as we've been working down this purpose road is saying, really what we need to do is find a way that we bring more value to that customer so they want to do more business with us because of what we provide and how we provide it, and instilling that in our folks. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because when people know why they're doing things and the values and what that can bring, it's pretty powerful. And I wanted you to talk about purpose a little bit.
Real quick, and I will do this. And then if you don't mind, I want to ask you a question about that. Okay, George? If it's fair. So, George, I absolutely love the journey, the purpose journey that you're on. And I love your purpose statement. I think I told you that when I saw you in Houston, right? It pulls me in. It attracts me. And here's why. I think always, but I think COVID raised the awareness of this individually for us. And the fact is, as human beings, we want to know that we matter. As human beings, we want to know that we've made an impact.
Right.
And we need to know that. And your purpose statement is a vehicle, in my mind, to help every individual take what they do, from the designing of those amazing tanks that I saw right in Houston, to the way that the individuals package with care and the uniquenesses that you've built into your packaging to be reliable, right?
Right.
When they can connect that to a successful launch of a rocket, when they can connect that to building that bridge, when they can connect that to that oxygen being delivered safely to somebody in a hospital, right? To those people who are changing the world, there's the opportunity to absolutely unleash the human spirit in the individual. And that's what I think leadership has just an unbelievable opportunity to do right now, at a time when your people are yearning for connection and impact and meaning. And that purpose that you have at Rotterman does all of those things. And it gives every leader in your organization an opportunity to have those conversations, to make those connections. It doesn't happen overnight, but if the leader really believes it and sees that purpose in action, and we continue to drive that conversation, your people, I guarantee you'll unleash that spirit in the people,
right,
and they'll see the impact and the meaning. So I think it's critically important. And I love your purpose statement. Can I ask you, George, real quick? Right there behind you, reliably Rotterman, right?
Yes.
I love the 3 ways you define being reliable. Can you remind me what those three are related to the purpose? And then I think I have a follow-up question for you, okay?
Well, we have reliable solutions. So when we look at reliable solutions, what we mean by that is we don't just say, hey, here's a bunch of stuff. What do you want? Pick it. And all the accountability stays to the customer. We'll make a recommendation. I use this analogy. If you're trying to do some sewing, we'll tell you the right material to use. We're not going to give you the needle and the thread. We're going to say, here's the needle, the thread, how to thread the needle. And by the way, this is the right stitch to use when you're on that type of material. So we try to glue all those different pieces together and do that part for our customers and say, this is the best recommendation we have for a solution, right? So that's one. Then we have reliable people, which is the fact that it stays with us, each one of us. Whether it happen in another department here or there, it doesn't matter. We're going to take care of the customer. We are the reliable people. And I will tell you that, that is a powerful, powerful statement because really it's on our shirts and on everything else. That's who we are. So there's no misunderstanding of what the expectation is there of who we are as an organization. We're all on the same page with that. And we're very fortunate we have very reliable people. And we spend a lot of time on that. If something happens incorrectly, we spend a lot of time to figure out what was that in the process that could change, fix that. And then we have reliable delivery. And reliable delivery, because that's what people want. They want to know the stuff gets there, right? They want it to be seamless. They don't want to have, they just want it to show up. And they want the right thing there. We've all been there where you get excited, you think you have the right part, and then it's not. You can't finish the project, or there's not the right quantity, or it's the wrong part altogether, or it doesn't get to the right location. All the things that can happen with reliable delivery. More importantly, is it damaged? And did it get damaged on the way there? So what we decided is it's very difficult. First thing, we're like, we can't be reliable delivery. It can't be one of our three claims. Because how can we control that? It goes on UPS. It goes on an LTL truck. But what we can do is take a lot of the responsibility of how we can change and shift that significantly so it does get to the customer. So we decided we put a tremendous amount of things in place, simple things some ways. For instance, our LTL packages, a lot of trucking people like to take those apart because they can pack more on a truck. And then they might restrap it or might shrink wrap it. But things get damaged or lost, and customers would say, why did you ship it this way? Look at it. So what we do now is we take a picture of everything we ship out. We send it to the customer. We shrink wrap it with a different color material. They can't just put clear on it. We'll know it's been repacked. And we send that ahead of time to the customer, and we also put a thing on the package saying, this is how it's shipped out. So the carrier knows we have sent this to the customer. This is how it's shipped out. Dramatically reduce the amount of deliveries where there's damaged product and dissatisfaction in how the product came in. We also want it to be easy for somebody to receive it in and put it into stock. So those became our three claims, and we focused on that. We did that as an overall team. And quite frankly, when we did it at first, we spent days working on what we thought our claims should be. Right. And then it almost just bubbled out simply, well, what do people expect from us? What do they say about us today? Oh, you're really reliable. So we actually changed the name to Reliably Roterman. I will also tell you, put the name Reliably Roterman, you will have the greatest feedback. You don't need to do a lot of going out there and asking people on a piece of paper, hey, how are we doing? I will guarantee you, when you have Reliably Roterman, they'll kind of come tell you, and you're going to get the greatest feedback in the world of what's something you didn't do correctly if it wasn't reliable. So it's been a powerful tool to get the constant feedback.
I love it. And what a great leadership lesson there is there, right? Rather than shying away from that feedback, let's proudly proclaim, here's the standard that we're going to hold ourselves to, right? Let's proudly proclaim that and then be open to, because we know we're not perfect, right? Be open to those situations and to get that feedback. And again, George, I don't know if you can fulfill that purpose. Give me your purpose statement again. One more time.
Providing solutions to the people that are building the future and changing the world.
Right. Helping the people who are building the future and changing the world. Right. I don't know how you can do that without reliable solutions, reliable people, and reliable delivery. And I see how it's all connected. And I think it's just a fantastic roadmap and journey that you all are on. So, and I find it to be very, very noble, right? So let's go back to We Supply America, champion the noble calling and distribution, right? It's absolutely noble in what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and it is a journey. It's a constant. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. It's having team meetings with all the different folks, getting feedback. It's a lot of work, but it sure has a great payoff. And there's nothing better than talking to a customer that has their story of how we did something really great. We also love to hear when we didn't do something right or it could be improved, because that's how we're going to get better. A lot of people send out surveys to find that information out. We love to know that. When we're disappointed if we didn't do a great job at something, but by golly, if we know about it, we're going to do something to, about it for the future.
Yeah. And George, if I can just piggyback on that, and what is there anything greater when you hear from the customers, right? About how you've impacted. But let's go back to my 59 visits, right? My visits with your team in Houston. Is there anything better when the individual employee gets excited to tell me about what they do and how they do it and
Yep.
why they do it? Because they are aligned. They see that purpose. They see that vision, and they are proud. They see the dignity, and they know the respect that the organization and the customers and the leadership team has for them and the job that they do. Is there anything more exciting than that? Is there anything more noble in that?
And
when you see the
when we get, for somebody to stop in their day and take time to send you an email back of how we've done a really great job for them and what we did that really helped them out. And boy, you bring that, and we get those. And you bring that to the employee that was involved with that, and you want to see a light bulb turn on. I mean, you show them, or another company from their CEO sent in an email saying, "Hey, I just got to let you know," or whatever it might be, and we share that, and that to me is joy. I mean, that's just pure joy. That employee will look at that and say, "Man, so I get it," And then we have a lot of recognition for that as well that goes home with them. Their whole family knows. Look, what a great job. So we have a lot of different awards we do like that for recognizing people and their great, outstanding work. So while you're going down the road, you have a lot of time. You have a lot of windshield time, I'm imagining, driving down the road. How many miles have you driven this year?
This year, it's been about 14,000, I think.
Yeah. So as you're driving down the road, and that's great because you get a lot of time to sort of think about the last couple of calls you've been on and last visits and all. It sounds like as you go down the road, what is it you find yourself motivated for the next stop and you get so excited about? What drives you as you got another 7-hour drive in your RV to the next place, and set up camp and all that good stuff?
So George, I say this We Supply America tour is the most rewarding thing I've done in my career. And it's also the most difficult thing I've done in my career. And so why do I decide to leave my wife and spend the summer away from home, traveling 31,000 miles, cooking hamburgers over a campfire in the KOA, so on and so forth. And I'll tell you why, George, and this is what I think about. I truly do believe that distribution is the backbone of our country. We don't have our society without what it is you all do. And I truly do believe that independent, family-owned businesses are much more than the product on their shelves.
Right.
And this started as a passion project for me, something to do coming out of COVID. And I think it's truly a calling for me right now. George, I love this country. I love entrepreneurialism. I'm a capitalist. I believe in capitalism. I believe in the goodness of all those things. And I believe there's such a narrative in this country right now that is anti-business. I believe there's a narrative in our country that it's me against you and the like. And what keeps me going right now is, of course, the business lessons. And I hope people that hear this podcast or watch our films on WeSupplyAmerica.net or follow me on LinkedIn, I hope they get a little spark, a little idea that they can take into their business and to help them and their employees and themselves. But I think if I'm truly honest with myself right now, George, after 2 years here too, I hope that this conversation even goes, I hope it's a spark to remind us all in this country about the goodness of this country, the importance of this country. And I believe that if we take the stories from the Rottermans of the world, from the CKs of the world, from the General Airs of the world, from the Indiana Oxygens of the world, those businesses from God that I've had a chance to stop at. I truly believe that if we were to take a look at the cultures, the purpose, the impact that these businesses have within their four walls. I truly believe that if we were able to take that and extract it out of the four walls and bring it into our society, we would improve a lot of the problems we have in this country. And so, yes, I'm on a mission, right, to champion the noble calling of distribution and bring these leadership lessons and these stories to help the industry remain the channel of choice. But yeah, I think, George, deep down inside, I pray, I hope, man, that it even has a greater purpose than that, because our country needs a new narrative. And I think that narrative can be found in the Rattermans of the world.
Well said. You got me motivated. I'll tell you.
I hope so.
I am.
Wait. George, is there ever a moment where you're not motivated? I know you, man.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dirk, it was so great to have you on the High Pressure Podcast today. I got a lot out of it, and I think all of our listeners will, and I think there's a number of things there we can all do more of. I love the idea of taking your folks each week, taking certain folks to lunch and having those moments together. That's such a special opportunity. There's so many good nuggets, I think, through this podcast we had today. So I really do appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, George, can I real quick? I know we're out of time, but can I ask you real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, come on. We're right around the corner from the God of National meeting.
Yes,
I'm going to have an opportunity to lead a fantastic panel discussion, but I also know that Ratterman has a lot of plans there. Can you tell me what we can expect from Ratterman down in San Diego?
Well, we usually have a little bit of fun in our contact booth, so we're going to have a boxing contest in our booth. So, you're more than welcome to come by for the boxing contest. We're going to have some other kind of fun social activities, things we're going to do. So I think we have a lot of things fun and planned at GATA. And I'm also really looking forward to your talk, because I know your talk is going to be about the generational changes, and you've got some great speakers there. Great people participating, Tim Kistler and Nicole Kistler, and then you have Allison and Jim Earlbeck. So that's going to be a great panel discussion. And I think that would be a really, really opening of eyes of what we can all look at doing. The two great companies that have had a really wonderful transition as they've gone through that. So I think that leading that through will be a great discussion for everybody to come watch.
Thanks, George. I'm super excited about that as well. Again, as we talked about this tsunami coming, in terms of the generational changes and the importance of independent, family and employee-owned businesses. I mean, we have to help each other, right? Be ready and be prepared for a successful transition from one generation to the next. And we've got two great companies, four amazing individuals who are going to share with us what they've learned as they've begun that transition and made that transition happen. So It's going to be a great panel discussion.
It will be. They are great companies. You're right. So, and then, the tsunami, and it's here, right? I mean, we're already up to our knees probably. Well,
George,
again,
thanks so much for having me. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I got to tell you what, all the folks in the High Pressure Podcast are going to really enjoy this particular podcast. So thank you again for making the time today. I know you're traveling and going across the country, so you have to find a good place with a good internet. So I appreciate you doing that today. And you have a great, fantastic rest of your day.
We will. George, be well. We'll see you in San Diego.